Hi there. Good to see you guys. Let's sing together a little bit this evening, starting with Send the Light. There's a call comes ringing or the restless wave to send the light. Let's sing it. There's a call comes ringing o'er the restless wave. Send the light, send the light. There are souls to rescue, there are souls to save. Send the light, send the light, send the light. The blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore. We have heard the Macedonian call today. Send the light, send the light. And a golden offering at the cross we lay. Send the light, send the light. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore. Let us not grow weary in the work of love. Send the light, send the light. Let us gather jewels for a crown above. Send the light, send the light, send the light. The blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore. Marvelous grace of our loving Lord, grace that exceeds our sin and our guilt. Yonder on Calvary's mount outpoured, there where the blood of the Lamb was spilled. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Dark is the stain that we cannot hide. What can avail to wash it away? Look, there is flowing a crimson tide. Whiter than snow you may be today. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Marvelous, infinite, matchless grace, freely bestowed on all who believe, all who are longing to see His face. Will you this moment His grace receive? Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. there. Good to see y'all this evening. I hope you had a great afternoon. Looking forward to a great evening. We're going to hear some more about Moses tonight. It's been exciting. Let's sing together, I Will Call Upon the Lord. And this has got a little bit of echo going on with this, so let's jump all over it like stink on a bug, okay? I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemies. I will call upon the Lord. Sorry. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be saved. So shall I be saved from mine enemy. I will call upon the Lord. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing, I will sing, I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord. With my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness, thy faithfulness. With my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness to all generations. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing, I will sing, I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord. With my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness, thy faithfulness. With my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness to all generations. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing, I will sing, I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord. In moments like these, I sing out a song. I sing out a love song to Jesus. In moments like these, I lift up my hands. I lift up my hands to the Lord, singing, I love you, Lord, singing, I love you, Lord, singing, I love you, Lord, I love you. In moments like these, I sing out a song. I sing out a love song to Jesus. In moments like these, I lift up my hands, I lift up my hands to the Lord, singing, I love you, Lord, singing, I love you, Lord, singing, I love you, Lord, I love you. Thank you.
I left something important back here. I wish I could find that. Numbers 20, verse 1 is where we will start tonight. All right, let's open with some prayer. Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for bringing us back together in your house, as your house. Thank you for this truth, this story of your people. May your Holy Spirit help us to understand, to see ourselves reflected in it, and to understand you and your holiness better. We ask this in the name of Jesus and in the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Tonight's the saddest story in the Moses catalog. In fact, somebody cried about it at Celebrate Recovery this week. It's kind of random. I didn't correct her or say anything. But she teared up thinking about this story. And I didn't prompt her. But I was maybe a reminder to me the gravity of the situation. There are many times in life where one mistake can just hurt somebody, just hurt them. You know, we probably all have. I was loosely acquainted with a pastor from Hobbs years ago that was doing good things and the church was growing, and he got the idea. It was a bad idea. As soon as I say it, you're going to know it's a bad idea, but he didn't pick up on it quick enough. To take a special gift and put it in an investment fund and then take it out later to help finish a new youth building. And the stock tanked. And not only was he fired, he spent time in prison. You know what I mean? There are many leaders that have similar falls, whether it be inappropriate relationships and things like that. I last year, I want to say it was PC. It was pre-COVID. I don't know. So I don't know whether it was 1 year ago or 50 years ago. I just remember we didn't wear masks. I was here, and I had a whole slew of guys that needed to go to the bus station. And I was happy to get rid of them. They were trouble. And so I was taken to the bus station, about a block from the bus station. The guy sitting in the front seat has a trash bag with all of his belongings in it. And about a block from the bus station, he opens the trash bag. He pulls out a handle of whiskey, and he just chugs it. And in our church van, and then he rolls down the window in front of God and everybody, and he just tosses the bottle out the window. And I saw my career flash before my eyes. I said, I will never explain an open container violation driving the church van at 8 o'clock in the morning in Odessa. I'm just going to have to resign. It was one of those things that happened so quick and was so shocking that by the time they all got out of the car, I thought, I can't believe that just happened to me, you know? We're always this close in a lot of ways, and it doesn't just mean leaders. We all have these important places in our life, and those one little mistake can just tempt us. Well, Moses finds himself in that situation today, unfortunately, and it breaks our heart. I was kind of glad to see the emotions of the lady on Thursday night because it reminded me, like I said, of the gravity of the situation. It ought to have been the case that Miriam and Aaron and Moses led Israel triumphantly into the promised land, and the original families followed right behind them, and they praised God the whole way. But we don't get that, unfortunately. In fact, I found it really interesting. I couldn't have told you before this week where this happened, but between last week and this week, 40 years pass. There's almost no stories of that 40-year loop in the desert where the original generation passes away. We assume that Korah's rebellion happened at some point in that 40 years, but at this point, we are definitely at the end of the 40 years. In fact, they're pulling into the parking lot of the Promised Land again when this story takes place, okay? A whole generation has died. The decades have passed since God's decree in chapter 14, and the people went on strike, and they are back at the same place at Kadesh where 40 years ago they sent 12 spies into the Promised Land, and they pull back into the parking lot, and then we get today's story. Let's read 1 through 8, and then we'll stop. In the first month, the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. There Miriam died and was buried. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron, and they quarreled with Moses and said, "If only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain, or figs, grapevines, or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so that they and their livestock can drink." All right, let's look at this. This is the first month, which means they should be celebrating the Passover. This should technically be their 40th Passover in the new land. It's not. They're not even in a celebrating mood. The first thing that happens, though, is just one little line, unfortunately, at the end of verse 1. What big thing happens at the end of verse 1? Miriam dies. Is interesting. It's reported with simple reverence. She was a leader. She was a prophetess. She was a songstress. She was the sister of the divinely chosen high priest and the prophetic leader of the nation. She demonstrated compassion soon after. In fact, she saved Moses' life at the river when he was a baby. Miriam is gone. She's the only woman whose death has been remembered from this whole generation. The love for Moses the love that Moses has for Miriam was really evident. You remember when Miriam was struck with a leprous skin disease? What did Moses do when Miriam got the bad skin disease? He prayed, and he prayed emotionally and fantastically and frantically. He had the 5-word prayer that's actually just 5 syllables in Hebrew. Please God. Oh, well, I messed it up somehow, but it's 5 syllables in Hebrew. Please God save her. It's 4 words in English. It's guttural. It was honest. It was frantic. This is his love for Miriam, and we've lost Miriam. Many people have wondered what the loss of Miriam did to Moses' attitude and approach, and maybe even his patience and his temperament for the rest of the story, but that's just going to be conjecture. But he has lost Miriam. She was died, and she was buried there. So, once again, we have a rebellion. What's this rebellion over? Out of water again. Same place, same story, no water. This is a tired old lament. This is tired. But what's ironic is if this is the new generation, It may be their first time to complain about water. They probably think they invented it. If we take this, everything as face value, we know that this generation had been born after their parents left Egypt. So these people that are leading the nation now have not seen Egypt likely, or they were children when they left Egypt. So what makes their complaint in verse 3 so ironic? In verse 5, all that, 3 through 5. They said exactly the same thing that their ancestors did. They've been in the wilderness their whole life. They are complaining most honestly about stories they heard from their parents, but not even story they heard from their parents. They're complaining modeled after the complaining they heard from their parents. Their parents complained, well, Egypt was better than walking around the wilderness. And these people don't know Egypt really. But now they're complaining in the same way. They've just co-opted this. You know, you can almost hear that thing about, I will visit the sins of the fathers on successive generations. That whiny, greedy lack of faith continues with these people, and they almost parrot their parents. Because of change? What do you mean by that?
Well, they complained when they were ready to enter. So change was coming.
That's very good psychology. It's possible that they were anxious about the change, but I don't know if we could assume that. But you're right. I'm sure that getting there is pretty close. No, not yet. They're at the parking lot. They're at the place where they send the spies from. And so they're kind of, you can smell it from there maybe. And they haven't even gotten there. Perhaps it's encouraging in this respect because we have the same experience today. We still have complaining people who complain about comparing to things that they never actually even saw themselves. They just heard about it. So at least we know we didn't invent it. It's a part of the human condition. One interesting thing that they do, and this won't change your life, but it's interesting. In verse 5, where it says terrible place, anybody got a synonym for terrible there in your Bible? Wretched, good. Evil. It's one of the strongest words in the Hebrew. There is something, and we don't know what the writer is telling us. But he is in some way saying that these people have ratcheted it up. Because they're now calling, why did you bring us out of Egypt to this evil or wretched place? They ascribe to evil the place where God has guided them. And that was dangerous ground. Another great irony is when they list all those fruits, what did you think about? The water. Yeah, that's right. They pretty well parallel the fruits that the spies bring back from the promised land. The huge grapes. It's almost like they've mixed up their stories from their elders, right? That they won't. No, they probably have not. I heard my dad talking about grapes one time, and I wonder, where are my grapes? And the ironic thing is, it's right over that hill. If you'll just hang on just a second. You ever tell your kids that? Just a minute. We'll be there in just a minute. We don't need a snack. We're almost home. But the fruits they listed were the very fruits in 1323 that the scouts brought back from the land 40 years ago. Now, Moses and Aaron at this point are doing great. They're doing great. The people respond with the same things. Wouldn't it have been better in Egypt? And no. We don't have any water. Why'd you bring us out here to die? And they respond with the same humility, and they do the same good thing. Just for the sake of getting it grained in our heads. What do they do when they're attacked? They go to the Lord. They don't defend themselves, and they prostrate themselves before Yahweh. What they're doing is in a way, I say they don't defend themselves. I only mean that literally, as in they don't defend themselves. They expect to be defended. They do not defend themselves. They trust in the Lord for the rights to be made wrong. And so at this point, Moses is still on track. And so Moses and Aaron go, and they lay in front of the Lord, and the glory of the Lord appears. And at this point, we're going to get pretty literal. let's look at the instructions because they're clear and they are important. So verse 8. What's the first instruction? Take the staff. And we think it's the staff that sits in front of the Ark of the Covenant. And we just talked about it 2 weeks ago. What staff is it? The one that budded. That's right. Aaron's staff that when they left it in front of in the tent overnight, it budded and it grew and it blossomed and it produced mature fruit overnight. So he says, take that staff, that amazing staff. I keep thinking, if this really had miraculously grown almonds, do you know how carefully I would be, how careful I would hold this thing? It'd be a miracle. I'd put on gloves and I'd carry it like this for fear that I'd shake off an almond, right? So first instruction, take the staff. Next instruction. Yeah. Well, I mean, we should be literal. Take the staff, gather the assembly, and then what Dick said, speak to that rock. Very clear. Even the language is a little bit cut and dry, and I think you'll see the point. Take the staff, gather the people, speak to that rock, and then what will happen? Water's going to come out. Those are the instructions. Think carefully about those instructions, Brother Moses.
God wanted them to see the water come just from spoken word.
He did. And he's going to make it clear to Moses what went wrong. Even now, as I'm fixing to read the story, I kind of hope I find a different story when I walk back over there. So, that it all just miraculously changed. Let's see if we get our wish. Verse 9. So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and he was proved holy among them. Okay, so we start off good. So Moses took the staff, and then in verse 13, there's this word, no, it's not verse 13, it's verse 9. Just as he commanded them. Which you see that phrase a lot in Numbers. You only see it once in this story. Because it stops using it, because Moses stops doing as he was commanded. He takes the staff just as he commanded him. In verse 10, he gathered the assembly in front of the rock. And this is where Moses makes his first mistake. God said what? Speak to the rock. Who did Moses speak to? The people. And he lets them have it. I mean, even though, these days rebel is, I take it as a compliment. One of the songs that I liked the best was I think it was a Christmas or it was an Easter song, and it was called "The Rebel Jesus," and it talked about how he was, against the system, but he kept on for truth anyway. There's good cameras called Rebels, and there's good pickups called Rebels and things like that. But what Moses says isn't quite as charming as Rebel Without a Cause or anything like that. Is pretty bad. Really, when we break it down in Hebrew, it kind of looks something like ones who behave obstinately. If you're interested, it's chamorim, and it's not a compliment necessarily. He says, "Listen, you people that continually behave obstinately." So instead of speaking to the rock, he speaks to the people and he dresses them down. He calls the people names. Now, just switch. Imagine, let's just say that your preacher did that he had had enough one week. And he came up And I mean, I'd really probably rather you not picture me. Picture another preacher. But imagine there was a prayer, and I kind of know this story, actually. I've seen it a couple times indirectly, where the preacher's just had enough, and he comes to church, and he announces his resignation, and he tells everybody what he thinks of them, right? How awful is that feeling? It is pretty close to what Moses is doing here. He's just letting them have it. After 40 years, 41, I would assume, sort of. I mean, that relationship is damaged, isn't it? Can you imagine if the guy didn't resign and he wanted to come preach next week and he just called all you guys a bunch of knuckleheads? That'd be terrible. But not only does he breach that, the pronouns are disconcerting. No, they're not pronouns. What do you call them? We. I forgot what to call that. But let's look at this word. Must we?
He's taking some of the credit for doing it.
Yeah. In this case, he's almost certainly referring to he and Aaron. Must me and Aaron? He's what?
Putting himself on the same level with God.
He's
Only God can do that.
he's taking credit for a God thing. You see, God asked him to stand beside the rock, take the staff as a reminder of God's authority. The staff represents God's authority given to Moses and Aaron. It's a reminder of that. Hold the staff, speak to the rock, don't touch it, and let me do something with it. And what Moses starts doing is, must me and Aaron do everything for you, chumps? Why is that such a problem?
I've got notes here from different things. As Moses was taking the glory for himself again.
Yeah.
God wanted the glory.
Her note said, to repeat for hearing, that Moses was taking the glory, some of the glory for himself, and God wanted the glory only for him.
I wonder why God didn't just let the rock not give me.
It's fascinating, right? I mean, there's a certain amount of grace in if just it doesn't work, right? And make him do it right. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we do with our children. No, you didn't wash your hands. You didn't use soap. Go back and do it again. There's a certain amount of grace and instruction in that, but it doesn't happen in this case. So he says, listen, you bunch of losers. Me and Aaron, we have to do everything for you people. And then it really comes to a head.
You thought he would have lost it before he went to the presence of God instead of after.
You would think, yeah. I guess standing there looking those people in the face, he just had enough. And again, point back, many people have wondered over the years, how does this connect with the loss of Miriam? What was the depth of the role of Miriam in Moses' life? Was she one of those people that would have been like, Moses, no. You're here, you need to be here. You know? There are people, I remember after Mom was gone, I realized I was doing some things that I wouldn't do if Mom was alive because I wouldn't have had the nerve to tell her I was doing it. And so, Miriam's death could have affected Moses in innumerable ways, but he dresses down the people. He insults the people. He takes credit for the hitting of the rock, and then he grabs his stick. And you just have to see, the violence and the thing. He didn't just go, what do you say when you're a magician? Abracadabra, water. That's not what he did. He took the stick and twice he dashed the stick against the rock, I'm not going to brag. Huh? I know, right? The almonds on it. And he's taken this amazing stick, this miracle of God, and he's hitting it not once. But when you hit something twice, what does it illustrate? Anger. You're not even rational at this point. Obviously, you're hitting a rock with a stick. You're clearly not rational. But to just keep laying into the rock with this stick that is this amazing, miraculous representation of God's authority. And he hits the rock twice, getting out all of this anger. And Jeannie said, I wish the rock wouldn't have poured out water. But it did. God's mercy took a different form that day in that he provided water for the people. He had mercy on the people instead of kind of the merciful instruction of Moses. He fulfilled his promise to provide ample water for the people, and Moses was used as an agent in the miracle. Geographers and biblical interpreters have written for years about the extensive aquifers that exist beneath the surface rock strata of the Sinai Peninsula. The several oases, such as a bunch of Egyptian words that I'm not going to try to say, are examples of such abundant water supplies. And evidently, God had a plan, and he cracked it anyway, despite Moses' leadership failure. The Lord continues to demonstrate, as he does today, his nature, fulfilling his promise to supply the needs of the people. Even the failure of the leaders would not thwart his will to bless the people. The rebellious, however, would fail to fully experience the abundance of his blessing. And so it's funny, from the people's perspective, Moses, boy, he lays into the rock, water comes out, and it flows. And from the people's perspective, what kind of day is this? How does this event feel? Feels good, right? I know Moses just dressed us down, but we got the water we needed. Yeah, I know, right? They probably did, and it ran out by now. And then you gotta imagine the walk for Moses away from the rock back to his own tent, or maybe even back to the tent of meeting to put the staff away, maybe with huge gashes in the staff now. His heart's got to be sinking. I don't know about you, but I got sent to the principal a lot. And that walk always bothered me. I always regretted it. The principal was never near as scary as the walk to the principal. And he gets back, and God speaks to him. Look at what God says to him in verse 12. Just read it to yourself and think about what hits you with that verse. What's the focus of God's statement? Trust. Huh? Treat me as holy. Let's just take it sequentially. We have because, we really wouldn't pay much attention to that word, and that's okay. But we need to know that this is God saying, for this reason, this grave consequence that can still make people cry in Monahans, 6,000 years later. It is coming for this reason. And the first reason is trust in me enough. How did Moses betray God's trust? He didn't do what he said. Crystal says he let his emotions override God's instruction.
But he did believe water would come.
He did. He trusted that God would do it. The interesting thing is, I don't really think, and from reading, I think it's correct. Moses didn't fail to believe that God would deliver water. Moses failed to think that God's way was best. And Moses might have failed to think that God was going to deal harshly enough with the people. You ever wanted your enemies to get a tongue lashing? Or just a lashing? Whatever's convenient, huh, Gary? I mean, and I understand this. I mean, I've been hurt before, and I wanted the person who hurt me to be read the riot act, right? I wanted them to have to feel the weight. We assume that there's something in that. Moses thought that God's way out might have been a little too light, that these people really needed a dressing down. And if God didn't want to give it to them, I will. And that is a lack of trust that God will be the Redeemer. You know, one of the first powerful things that we see when they leave Egypt is when they're up against the Red Sea and the nation and the Egyptian chariots are coming. Do you remember what God told Moses? Be still. I will fight for you. And here we have Moses not being still. He has now attacked a rock with the sacred staff, and he is now fighting for Yahweh in a very real sense. So there's a trust barrier here.
Is there anger in this?
There's very much anger in this. He's angry, and he wants to do it a different way, apparently, than what God does, and he has a lot of emotions that are pushing him into that. And so because you didn't trust in me enough to, whether you want to look at it as bring water, trusted me enough to tell the people what they needed to do, trusted me enough to get not vengeance, but to get justice. Because you didn't trust in me enough to honor me. And honor me as holy. Meaning, one of the things that makes us the most frustrated is, it's silly. It's almost not important. But as parents, is if you say, hey, put your seatbelt on, and then the mouth keeps going and the seatbelt doesn't go on. I'm not that concerned about the seatbelt at that point. I'm concerned, like, I spoke and it didn't seem to matter to you, right? Because you didn't honor my words as holy dad. God says the same thing. Because you didn't honor me as holy. If God speaks to us, the indication is that we would listen, we would absorb it, and we would follow it so closely. But Moses has gotten lax. And then also, it's not just honor me as holy, it's honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites. So let's go back to the Israelites. What could they have perceived about this event? And how did God want it to be different?
Well, they perceived him being more holy than God, I guess.
They perceived it being more about Moses than it really was. Where would they get that idea? From Moses. He said, do me and Aaron have to bring you water? And then he acted. So in the sight of the Israelites, it was built to show Moses bringing water from a rock. And this is what God is saying. Not only did you not trust in me the way you handled this, but you made it look in the sight of my people like you did this when I asked you not to do that. Yes, Crystal?
I was thinking that, like, I hadn't thought before that this is the new generation and that we don't have recorded that they complained like this before. So this was, I mean, before when the old generation complained, God did show wrath because he had given them chance after chance and showed himself holy time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like the babies, and this is their first time complaining, and God doesn't want to judge them now. He wants to teach them, to show them. But Moses doesn't allow it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very good. She talked about how this new generation, this may be their first round with rebellion, and God wants to show himself holy to them. He does, even though Moses is tired and an old hand and has lost, these may be a new generation experiencing this new. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Okay. You had to speak to the next generation to make yourself holy. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, in that, Moses is setting an example for how you would follow God's commands
Yeah.
to a new generation like yourself.
Yeah.
And then that opportunity was stolen.
That opportunity, very good. She said Moses was setting an example of how to follow God's commands for the new generation. And that opportunity was lost because of the way he acted. Terrible. When God accuses them, who wrote this? This Dr. Goldengay. When God accuses them of a failure of trust, it likely means that they are trusting in themselves to solve the problem. It would link with Moses taking forceful action, hitting the rock, rather than merely addressing it. In turn, it would imply failing to make God holy, to recognize and honor God's goodness or godness. So trust, if he trusted in God, he would have completely, he would have followed it to a T. And the consequence for all this, what is this terrible consequence? He doesn't get to see, he doesn't get to take them in. Aaron, yeah, that's right. After all this time, and I never realized, you got to do things in context or you lose so much. I didn't realize how close they were. Boy, that's a heartbreak. Can you imagine telling your kids you're going to take them to Six Flags and you pull into the parking lot and then they argue one more time and you pull back out of the parking lot? Boy, you'd have some broken hearts right there, right? But that's where they are, man. They're in the parking lot when this happens. We just lost Miriam, and now by saying, hey, you guys aren't going in, but we're here, they're pretty much saying, your days are numbered. You're not making it. Oh, what a... Yeah, he's going to essentially die before he gets there. Moses would only be allowed to see the land from a distance, from the peak of Mount Pisgah and the Transjordan, and Aaron will not see it at all. This congregation, whom Moses is so mad at right now, they will enter the land that God was going to give them. Terrible.
I thought Aaron was treated like he was the one that
You got to assume Aaron's complicit, I guess, even though he has no action in the story. God's action seems to indicate that Aaron is with Moses in his frustration. All right. Comments, questions, rebuttals.
I was thinking about in the method in which he hid it rather than just following God's instructions. The way God wanted it to be, it would have been more of a happy, loving, overall feel among the people than an anger-like,
Yeah.
harsh thing.
Yeah.
It would have made a difference in how the people received the miracle.
Exactly. Yeah. To repeat that as much as I can, that if things had gone the way God told him they should go, it would have been a loving, happy, provision, celebrating occasion of God providing for the people on the eve of entering the promised land. And what it was angry and spiteful and completely changed the tone of it, It is fun to kind of replay. If we could go back and give Moses a second chance and did everything well, it would be the most joyous occasion. You know what I mean? Just a celebration. The rock opens up. They're drinking water. They're on the edge of the promised land. 40 years have gone by. We've made it. We're going to go in. Squashed.
Well, and hitting a rock and water maybe coming out, it makes sense, but talking to a rock and water coming out?
Yeah, dude. That's a thing. I guess it is feasible that, to think that Moses could have beaten a hole in the rock, But that doesn't sound very good to me.
My whole life I always thought, this wasn't fair.
I know.
All those people that he just showed the wrong thing to. He's responsible for all of those people when he just showed them how to dishonor God.
Moses is pretty old by now, too.
Yeah. I mean, I get why it's a big deal. I wish somebody would, honestly, here's what I wish, and this is completely nuts. You can't change history. I wish Aaron or somebody had gone and thrown themselves on the ground in front of the tent of meeting and begged for Moses the way that Moses has begged for the people so many times. I don't know if it would have changed anything, but I'd like to see it.
Can you imagine what history would have been if that hadn't happened?
We're getting a little too deep for me now. We're talking about reinventing the history of the ancient world. Yep. No, that's why there's not a time machine, Gary.
It would make a difference.
It might not. Yeah, Billy Don sagely says it wouldn't make any difference. And he's probably right. The Israelites have shown over and over again their really adept ability to complain about stuff and lose their way. I don't know that they would have just found something else to complain about. As does Josh. Well, let's sing our way out of here. We'll mourn for poor Moses.
We're gonna sing the promised land.
I don't know. We'll find out in a second.
Great and mighty is the Lord our God. Great and mighty is He. Great and mighty is the Lord our God. Great and mighty is He. Lift up your banner, let the anthems ring. Praises to our King. Great and mighty is the Lord our God. Great and mighty is He. Great and mighty is the Lord our God. Great and mighty is He. Great and mighty is the Lord our God. Great and mighty is He. Lift up your banner, let the anthems ring. Praises to our King. Great and mighty is the Lord our God. Great and mighty is, great and mighty is, great and mighty is He.